All right, welcome everyone to the March 15th, 2021 regular meeting of the Village Council of Yellow Springs. And Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Hausch.
I'm here.
McQueen.
Here.
Stokes.
Here.
Krieger.
Present.
Curlis.
Here.
Also present are Solicitor Brianne Parcels and Village Manager Josue Salmeron.
Okay, great. So first up, we have a executive session for the purpose of a complaint against a village official. Do I have a motion to move into executive session?
I move.
I second.
All right, Judy?
Yes. Hausch.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're now going to move into the breakout rooms, and we will be back at 7 o'clock for the rest of the meeting. Okay, so I think we are officially live on all venues and channels. And welcome everyone again to our regular council meeting of March 15th, 2021. We just came out of an executive session and we are going to now move into announcements. And Brianne, why don't you go ahead and start?
Just want to let everybody know, Happy Sunshine Week, the 2021 version of the Yellow Book for Open Meetings and Public Records is available to the general public for download from the Ohio Attorney General's site. So if you are interested in obtaining public records or learning more about open meetings law, that is a handbook that's geared not just toward public officials, but the general public.
All right, thanks, Brianne. Josue, why don't you go next?
Brian, I've got 3 announcements. First, the administration is excited to take a deeper role with the community gardens in our community. So we'll be reaching out to the gardeners at the village-owned properties, and we'll have a series of hearing sessions to talk with gardeners about how to make improvements on the program and how village can best help the aspiring dreams of our community gardeners. So we'll be putting out a letter to the editor and announcing the hearing sessions on the program. Second, the second one I need to share my screen for because this is exciting news. So let me share my screen here. Screen 1. All right. We have entered the Strong Towns competition. So Strong Towns, you get to vote for what's your favorite town, and obviously you're in Yellow Springs, so it's Yellow Springs. But we need you to take some action. We want you to go to our Facebook page and click on the link to cast a vote. You can cast a vote now through March 18th, and we need your vote. You're able to vote once every day. So please go on to the website and vote. You can go onto our website for the link, or you can go to our Facebook site and click on the link to vote. It's very easy. Go on our Facebook, click the link. Once you open that link, that takes you to the voting site. And we're up against Osaki's, Minnesota. Cute town, tourist-loving town, very similar to Yellow Springs, but we are Yellow Springs and we need to show up and represent. So I asked you to go on this site, vote. Voting happens until March 18th. So go on there and vote. And you can learn about Osaki. Never heard of them. Cute little town, but obviously we are Yellow Springs and we need to show Yellow Springs pride. So go on there and vote. Finally, you might have heard that the American Recovery Act has been sent off to the president's office for signature, sign, and there are some funding that's going to become available to municipalities like us. So we expect several $100,000. Matt Dillon, our finance director, and I are meeting about what are the restrictions, how can we use the fund, and the funds are very broad. We can use it for a number of activities, such as replacing revenue loss, infrastructure projects, continuing the public health response, which the government is certainly committed to it, and ensuring a safe recovery in all of our services. So there's many things that we could do with it, and we will be announcing and having a discussion with council about next steps on those funds and how to best use those funds. So stay tuned.
Yeah, thanks for that, Josue. And it is great that local governments were recognized as needing support, especially as we're in recovery mode. And I know that we'll continue to invest in all aspects to keep our community thriving. Kelly Ann Tracy, I heard you had a community announcement.
I do. Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you, everybody, for letting me just talk with you this evening. So I'm really excited that I have a new groovy little company that I'm just starting here called Holding Space Enterprises. And project coordination is one of the, and event coordination is one of the services that we provide. And I'm happy to say that our very first little project out that we're holding ourselves is the community Easter egg hunt located at Gaunt Park this year. Going to be held on Saturday, the 3rd. So I want to tell you a little bit about it. First of all, I have talked with both the fire chief and the police chief about it. I've submitted our plans to the Greene County Health Department. Josue and I have also gone over the plans. We're going to use the park in its entirety. We're going to have 2 different stages so that the young kids will come in first and have some fun and do their egg hunt. And then we'll have the second shift of kids that will come in later. We're going to be masked only, and we'll have cleansing stations throughout the park as well. So the plan is that we will be distributing baskets with biodegradable grass to all of the kids that participate. We've got thousands of eggs or plastic eggs that we'll be filling as well. We have approached many of the organizations in town, the businesses, to help us put little goodie certificates in the eggs. So it'll bring more business into the village businesses. So I'm super excited about it, and everybody that I've talked to is really excited. And I think that we can pull this off and have a really safe event and kind of bring the spring back into Yellow Springs this year. So I'm here today to ask and see if the village might be able to help us financially. We have a $3,500 budget. And thus far, we have about $600 that has been pledged.
Okay, thanks for that, Kellyanne. I think, and as far as the funding support, when are you hoping to know about those things?
Oh, as soon as you can tell me, Brian.
Okay. Okay, because I'm not sure that we can just respond to that, right now, but we can definitely discuss it and think about like what are the possible options? All right. Thank you so much, Kellyanne.
Thank you.
Do we have any other announcements?
This is Lisa. I have one.
Mm-hmm.
I want to let people know that on April 2nd and 3rd at 7:30 at the Central State Theater, a play by Bomani Moyenda is going to make a world premiere, and it's called What's Done in the Dark. And it's directed by John Fleming. I know we have more than one John Fleming. This is the YSKP John Fleming. And the play sounds very interesting. It's being presented in a hybrid format with both a limited size live audience and a simultaneous stream on the CSU Facebook Live site. So I'll be certain that the village has the detailed information to put on our social media and our website so that we can be there to support this work that involves a lot of local people and local actors. Elias Kelly, who's the manager, Tucky Bailey, who wrote some original music. So it sounds really interesting, and I hope we can all attend. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Marianne, did you have something?
Yes. First, I wanted to let everyone know that we were entered in the strongest towns contest because Raven Barons picked this up and started the ball rolling, and several of us added to it. But I just want to thank Raven for doing that. And the other announcement that I have involves a BW Greenway fundraiser that's happening at the farmers market this Saturday and at the senior center. So there will be Easter baskets and various Easter sort of things for those who would like to purchase those at the farmers market this Saturday from 9 to 11, and at the senior center on Saturday and Sunday in the afternoon from noon to 3.
All right. Thanks, Marianne. And yeah, I have a couple other things I want to highlight. Between this meeting and our prior meeting, we missed an important birthday, and that is our village manager, Josue Salmeron. And so Josue, we appreciate you. Thank you for all that you do, your hard work, and accepting the additional years that are being added with all that you are doing. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah, I got a call from the YSKP, John Fleming, and some other people have raised this as well. With the weather getting nicer, we should consider, number one, a downtown signage refresh. I know that we are getting close, but it's not over. And I actually brought in my stash of Be Kind yard signs. So they're here at the Bryan Center. I know that we had several naughty people that would pull them up and hide them behind dumpsters. So I'm guessing that maybe the police department also has some of these. And I'd like to just and a few of them look raggedy. I think most look pretty good. But John also mentioned considering some kind of messaging in these next couple months that is related to this, it's not over. So I think that's something that Josue, and maybe in collaboration with the chamber, you can think a little bit about that, because we've done so well. We want to get to, a July 4th where we can celebrate together, and we want to make sure that we're careful for these next couple months. Next thing I wanted,
Brian,
yeah.
I'm sorry, just so it's not left off, we jumped over the swearing in, so as soon as announced.
I have not forgotten, Judy.
Okay.
I just didn't see Matthew right when we jumped in, but yeah, it's next on my list. All right. I also wanted to highlight, and I heard Laura mention this at the Planning Commission meeting as well, the new wayfinding signage, which looks really great. And Josue, you also mentioned something on the Planning Commission. What's happening? Tell us about the town hall on April 14th. Are you there? All right. Well,
he was muted, Brian.
Okay. All right. Josue, I'll just, he'll come back to us on that. Last thing I wanted to mention is I and Josue and some other community leaders were invited to talk to the Yellow Springs Community Foundation Youth Action Board. And it was a great interaction. Josue was in another meeting. The meeting I was in was with Jalen Rowe and Susan Jennings and Terry Holden. And they were talking about a lot of issues that are on our goals, such as environmental sustainability, related to affordability, housing, a lot of great questions. And their plan is to come to us with some projects that they want to focus on based on the information they're gathering. So I look forward to that, and it really was a great interaction. All right.
Brian, I got my mic working. Sorry.
Cool.
Virtual town hall on the 14th. We have our sidewalk project that's kicking off. We've done some engineering. This is for the limestone project, and we want to have community input. We sent out letters to all the residents that are in the vicinity of the project, and we didn't hear anything back. I imagine that that's a 2 thumbs up on the project, but we want to have another opportunity for the public to weigh in. So we're hosting a virtual town hall on April 14th at 7 p.m. That's to talk about the sidewalk project, provide an update, and what are the next steps on that project.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we are now, I saw that Matthew KIRK is with us, and I was like, stand for these. And so Matthew, make sure to put a hand up and repeat after me. I solemnly affirm.
I solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution.
That I will support the Constitution.
And will obey the laws of the United States.
And will obey the laws of the United States.
And the state of Ohio.
And the state of Ohio.
And that I will in all respects.
and that I will in all respects
observe the provisions of the charter.
observe the provisions of the charter
Because this next part is tricky, and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs,
and ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of,
and will faithfully discharge the duties of
you can fill it in,
the office of
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission.
All right, thank you, Matthew. You've been doing
Right.
great work. We appreciate you.
Thanks. Have a great night.
All right. Okay, so next up we have the consent agenda, and that is just the minutes from our last meeting on March 1st. Can I get a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes from the meeting on March 1st.
Okay, and a second?
Second,
All right, Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
McQueen,
yes.
Krieger,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Tausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next up is a review of the agenda. And so are there any things that we need to add, remove, or modify?
Yes, I have something to add, which is Laura and I want to nominate 2 new members to the Environmental Commission.
Okay, and I think that's listed under boards and commissions. I saw nominations there.
Oh, yeah,
Anything else?
It is, great.
Okay, I do want to add in petitions and communications, there's the request about the fracking sign-on letter. So let's add that to new business. And anything else?
Do we want to add Kellyanne's request or?
Sure. Yeah, we can add that today. Why not? Okay. Anything else? All right. If not, then Marianne, if you could walk us through the petitions and communications, please.
Yes. We had 2 reports from Elise Burns from the Mayor's Court. We had 2 pieces of information from the Greene County Health Department, one on nutrition and the other on information about registering for the COVID vaccine. Yamfi Yamamura had 3 communications, one in support of Juneteenth as a holiday, one in support of having a citizens review board for the police department, and then another that didn't actually get in the packet, which was part of a document from the Black Lives Matter leaders from last year. So those were 3 pieces from him. Laura Curlis had information about public broadband and spectrum expansion, and I don't know whether that's something that we want Josue to follow up with, but I think that was important information to further get information about. Mitzi Miller had a letter about the proposed agreement with Home Inc. Melissa Tinker had a communication regarding limiting non-guest transient guest lodging. Laura Curlis had something from, I think, what was it, 200 years of Yellow Springs history regarding the ongoing housing debate on the glass farm, and some other information about power siting for the solar farms. I had a solar farm update and also some reports from several of the Strongtown seminars that I've been listening to. And then Brian, the communication about fracking that you mentioned. That is it.
Thanks, Marianne. And I did want to mention, since you brought up, should we look at some of those issues with municipal broadband? I do want to highlight that This is an issue that's been talked about since 2014, well documented when we had the Fiber Forum, SpringsNet, we've had studies. So there are a lot of documents. All these questions are easily answerable. But that being said, I think it is a good time to bring back a special report and update, I guess, Laura, who wasn't here in the past, and then also other community members for which this might be new. But I do want to mention that this has been going on for 7 years now. And so there's been a lot of great work that's been done. We've been threatened in a kind way by Spectrum, Charter, AT&T in the past. So this is nothing new. And there are plenty of communities that have done this successfully that we've modeled our initiative off of. So anyway, so Josue, let's think about when to do that in the future.
Absolutely,
All right.
Whenever we can get it on the schedule. One thing I would like to point out, Brian, that on the map that was included, you can't tell the detail about a closer examination. It's clear that the expansion that Laura referenced and Spectrum's reference, and the expansion is to the rural areas around Yellow Springs. So there isn't an additional service being expanded here. So there's an assumption there that it's not accurate about the expansion that closer examination of the map clearly demonstrates. Thank you.
Yep. So it sounds like we'll definitely want to look at that. All right. So we're going to move into legislation, and we have one ordinance on the list, which I believe is 2021-05. And Judy, we can read that in by title only.
All right, this is repealing and replacing section 1064.02, rates, admissions, and season hours of chapter 1064, municipal swimming pool of part 10, streets, utilities, and public services of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Can I get a motion?
I'll move to approve.
All right. And a second?
Second.
All right. Josue. All right. There we go.
All right, thank you. I've got a brief presentation, Brian, if I may. All right, pool ordinance, the pool rate ordinance. This is a repeal and replace to the ordinance that we have. I want to do a brief introduction here on why we're discussing this now. In 2020, at the beginning of the pool season, we proposed a rate adjustment to the previous rate that hadn't had an increase in some time. And we thought that the rate adjustment recommendation there allow us to increase the revenues, some for the pool, but not at the sacrifice of affordability and access to our community. So we thought it was the right time to want to stay competitive with what's happening in the market and increase the revenues to cover our increasing cost of chemicals, operation, and whatnot. Then 2020 hit, and a lot of things happened. Obviously, we were unsure about all the precautions we needed to happen, but we exercised the most cautious approach that we could, and that included the limiting of the pool access to 2 hours at a time, which merit a significant restructuring of the pool rates. So council approved a rate that's based on 2 hour usage. Now that we are coming out of the pandemic and we are allowed more flexibility in operations, we are overall recommending going back to the initial proposal that was approved by council. That was the initial 2020 rates before COVID hit and we had to adjust the rate. So that's a brief summary. But before going further, I wanna share who our Parks and Recreation leader is. Samantha Stewart. I think at the last council meeting, there was a statement made that we don't have a Parks Recreation person and we don't know what strategy is happening with parks. Not true. We have a Parks Recreation leader, and I can't speak enough good things about Samantha and her approach to the work, because under her leadership, we were able to open the pool, do it safely. We were able to lead a learning center for vulnerable youth and school children who would otherwise have no other conducive learning environment. And she's able to do that for our community. So I want to thank Samantha and the great work that she's done. And I want to share her picture. And so you see around that, now you know who Samantha Stewart is. So I'm very grateful for all the work that Samantha does for us. The pool opening, we're scheduling for May 29th, and we are anticipating opening the pool with all the COVID precaution. Now, there's been some talk about Dr. Fauci adjusting his recommendations for physical distancing. We expect to follow all the COVID guidelines and take the most precautionary approach to opening the pool. So I want to reassure council and the residents on what those precautions will be. They would include mask and physical distancing will be required. Obviously, we'll adapt with the changing guidelines, but we already anticipate having those requirements in place, marking the grass in the pool to indicate what is a proper distance for folks to set up camp at the pool. So those are the brief overview on pool opening. The rates, I want to remind council what those rates were. The initial rates for 2020, the daily admissions for 3-year-olds and younger will be free. For 4 to 18-year-olds and seniors 62 and older will be $4 for the daily admission. And 19-year-olds to 61-year-olds, it's $8.50. We are going to make season passes available. That's a big difference from operating under COVID this year versus last year, that we could not make a season pass available, but we're happy to return to this model. So village residents season passes, 3-year-olds and younger are free with paying adults. 4 years old to 18-year-olds and seniors 62 and older is $68. 19 is 61-year-olds or $98. Adult and one minor, $113. Households of 5 or fewer, $130. Each additional member is $15. Also, we're going to remind council that we allow grandparents to buy season passes and add their grandchildren to their passes. So we'll continue that practice. Non-resident season passes, we maintain that 3-year-old and younger free with paying adults. 4 to 18-year-olds and seniors 62 and older are $112. 19 to 61-year-olds, $157. Adult or minor, $217. Households of 5 or fewer, $232, and each additional member, $20. So that, in a nutshell, is what is before you on this ordinance.
Okay, and just to confirm, Josue, so we're not proposing any like days where certain people are excluded to use the pool?
I would like the council not have that condition in place. We experienced last year that we would have the pool open on the weekend, and we'll have a fully staffed pool with one customer in the pool. The limiting the weekend, which is our busiest time, to just one group of people didn't work for us last year. I'm not recommending that for this year.
I have a question.
Yes, Lisa?
I recall back in the whenever that was before COVID, wasn't there sometimes just regular open hours that were for adults only?
Yes, we plan to continue some swim, lap swim.
Lap
sessions.
swim.
Yes. So
there's
we
the
have
words,
that program.
thank you.
Last year we extended it, extended the time because we had so many number of our seniors and folks that rely on the pool for their physical activity. So we extended that, and we'll have lap swim hour, and we're open to expanding the hours based on demand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions or comments? All right, well, it's exciting. I think I'm glad there's a plan, and this certainly makes a lot of sense. There will be a second reading since this is an ordinance, but let's go ahead and Judy take a vote on this first reading, and then we'll have a public hearing at the next meeting.
All right, Curlis.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
Okay, yes. Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. So we are then now going to move into citizen concerns. So this is the time on the agenda where we welcome comments about any items that are not on the agenda. And we limit those comments to 3 minutes. And so we may need to cut you off if you are not able to.
I note that there is a question in chat from Megan Bachman that may be about the pool.
Okay, well, let's take that question. And if it's about the pool or not, it can be a good crossover. Go ahead, Megan.
Thanks, Brian. It's actually a question that I keep meaning to ask but forget. An HVAC professional said that the water softening, that the water coming from the village's water plant is not softened to the same level that it was when the plant opened. And so people need to reset their water softeners to a different level. So I was wondering if that is indeed true and what that new level is for people to set their water softeners to. Thank you.
Josue, Johnny, do we have an answer?
I don't have the numbers of the particles to which we're setting our water softening right now, not in front of me. I know I have it in the mini reports that I get from the team, so I would have to look it up. I haven't committed that number to memory, so I apologize, but I will get that number to you, and we'll bring back a report.
Okay, and then, yeah, I guess we could also, once we find that, post that on Facebook and on the website.
We were told to do 15 grains per gallon at the start. So that's what people know. Thanks.
Okay, I will make sure to follow up and provide the numbers to you. I think some of the softening and hardness are depending on what users' preference are. I personally prefer a little harder water than softer. But I will get those numbers out.
Okay. All right. I see that Jonfi's got his hand up. So, Jonfi?
Yeah, this is just for a point of clarification on Juneteenth, paid holiday, and real quick comment about CRB, just for clarification there. But I can reserve comments on CRB for the JSCC part if you'd like to save time.
I think it's okay. I think it's okay to comment on both now. And we got your letter about the Juneteenth, which is going to be on our agenda for the next meeting. Okay.
Yeah, just that Juneteenth is something that, you know, it's a real thing that happened in our generation. So that's a celebratory thing and it's American history. So that's the point for that. And then as far as me wanting to undeclare Christmas as a paid, I don't think constitutionally taxpayers' money should be going toward a religious holiday. But I already understand the Supreme Court's argument on that is, since we're using secular symbols like trees or reindeers, that makes it a cultural phenomenon, and therefore it's not a religious holiday, which is a terrible argument, because then why are you calling it Christmas then? So that's the point for declaring that. And if you don't celebrate all religious holidays, for paid vacation, you shouldn't be, this is what I'm saying, you shouldn't be having any paid holidays for religious reasons. It's either all or none. I went through this in the federal when I worked for the Fed. I had to speak up because nobody spoke up on it, and we actually stopped. When I went to the director, she understood. It's just that nobody spoke up about it. So that's all I want to say about that. And then on the CRB, just for clarification for Lisa, I don't know if she was understanding what I was trying to say was, my guiding light is the demonstrators' demand. So I'm going by that. I'm not going by 365 who joined the movement. They're part of the movement. They're not the movement per se. A lot of people in a lot of organizations joined. So I'm just trying to clarify that I'm working with 365, and they're behind me with the CRB, as far as the CRB, but not with the striking to move the fallacious use of the word race, which we're working on to get they're open to getting that off the website, the way it's used, and actually put the real mission statement on, which is really a great. I'm okay with that one, but it's not on the forefront of the website. So I was just saying that because 365 is actually a good paradigm to follow as far as running these type of meetings. They actually like to bring, they're open to bringing up the hard talk, and they don't try to shut down speech, that you can talk about what you want to talk, and they're open. So it's a great paradigm, and I would love for JSCC to get a hold of 365's meeting model, because they are open for talking about difficult things and just things new in general.
All right. Well,
so that's all I was saying. My guiding post though is the demonstrators' demands. That's what I'm following, just even though I'm working with 365. Okay,
all right. Thanks for those comments, John Fee. And just to clarify, since I think most people don't know CRB, John Fee is referring to the Citizen Review Board initiative, which is part of the anti-racism measures that we have on a chart that were largely guided by those demonstrators. Okay, so any other citizen concerns? All right, if not, then we're gonna move into special reports. And I believe we've got the Environmental Commission annual report next.
Yes, and I just realized that I hadn't sent the PowerPoint to, I've never done this before. So I just sent it to Josue, and I don't know if Mark, who's going to give the report, can show it on his screen. So,
Josue, can you share the report? There you go. Thank you. Hi, Brian. It's Mark calling in from California. I've been wintering in California. Missed all the snow out there.
Wow, lucky you.
Yeah. I was tasked to give the 2020 report for the Environmental Commission. Before we start into the main topics we got onto, I want to recognize the people who volunteered their time to be part of the commission, and that those people were Tom Dietrich, Nadia Malarkey, Deanna Newsom, Sue Pfeiffer, Catherine Zimmerman, Matthew Lawson, and myself, Mark Ewald. And then we had help from the council members, Marianne McQueen and Laura Curlis, and everyone put in some good effort into the 2020 year. As for the main topics, Jose, you can go to the next slide. Is our main activities in 2020 included these several topics: the wildlife habitat community certification, the glass farm management, we looked into the source water protection, we worked on the VIII remediation project, we contributed to stormwater management, and we had a recycling, reuse, and reduce project as well. Next slide. I'm going to go into each one of these real quickly at a high level and explain with some detail what happened for each of these topics. Catherine Zimmerman was really the head on the wildlife habitat communities certification. You guys probably know, but it was a collaborative effort between multiple organizations, Community Solutions, Tecumseh Land Trust, and the Glen Helen Association. And she created a bunch of marketing for this process, including she made a Facebook group and did radio interviews, newspaper articles, and flyers and library displays. And I'm sure people can see the little signs that are hung up around town, the certification signs. Catherine also worked with Nadia and the Planning Commission to update the Yellow Springs weed ordinance, which was an essential part of to get this certification. Jose, next slide, please. So far, we have 60 wildlife habitats certified in the community. These can be residences or organizations. I know the library has one. I know other houses in my neighborhood have them. So I think they're scattered around town now. The certification process for the village happened in record time, and we were recognized as one of the top 10 certified communities in 2020. There's some permanent signs installed throughout the town, one on Dayton Street next to the Yellow Springs sign. And Catherine's planning a celebration for Earth Week 2021. Which will include hanging of a banner. The next project was the Glass Farm Conservation Area Management. This is a collaborative process amongst a couple organizations to maintain and make this property, walkable and make it a welcoming place. Pat Brown donated some native plants, and neighbors mow the walking paths and the prairie so it blooms better in the following years. Marianne and Vicki Hennessy repaired the flow device where the beavers used to hang out. And then these two photos here, one is the wildlife habitat from Catherine's, the wildlife habitat sign here, and then there's a muskrat lodge in the pond there. And the next project we worked on is we helped Josue and the village understand our source water protection plan. This image on the left is it's the capture zone boundary. You can see there's 3 boundaries, and it's the time of travel. The red one is the 1 year, the blue one is the 5 year, and then the black line is the total capture zone. So we wanted to know, for various reasons, that what defines our capture zones for, say, like the Vernay contamination. We want to know if that's a risk, and other sites if they were in or out of the capture zone. So we did some studying with a local hydrologist, Bob Curley. We asked if our whole source water plan needed to be revised because we know of its age. And now we're going to collaborate going forward with the Ohio EPA to make sure to redefine the capture zone. We're continuing to work on the Vernay remediation. This is an ongoing process. Josue has really been leading the effort, but he gets input from our members, especially Tom, Nadia, and myself on the cleanup. The next big event we're going to help organize is the statement of basis. That's like, statement of basis means like their final proposed design for the cleanup. And at that time, there'll be plenty of time for open comments from the public. I think that statement of basis has been postponed because of COVID, but it should be coming up soon. Josue probably knows the date for that, or when should we expect that?
Mark, on the statement of basis report, we are, other than the COVID, we are still trying to get additional information on the 3D particle tracking model. We've got a good horizontal view of the water, the underground water, and how contaminants flow through it. The US EPA has requested additional inputs to get a better view of the 3D tracking model. So that and the estimates for the soil excavation, which are illustrated here in the second graphic where it shows the hotspots. The soil contamination is that pink area. All of that is to be excavated. And one of the items that are being questioned is how the contractor estimated the volume of soil to be excavated. And once the VIII and its contractor are able to provide that information, the US EPA felt they would be in a better position to move forward with the statement of basis because they wanted to make sure that as they sign off on a remediation plan, that all the protective factors and our concerns are being addressed. So that's been a significant delay on that. We don't know, the timeline is unknown at this point. We initiated late last year and beginning of this year, we're estimating second quarter being the timeline to deliver a statement of basis, but we're entering near the second quarter now in April, so we're not there yet. So I've been promoting a timeline, but at this point, given the delays, I felt uncomfortable, and the US EPA felt uncomfortable giving us a timeline just because of the things that have come up in the request for additional information. But overall, what I would like to point out is that we've had a lot of our concerns addressed up front now, more so than they were addressed in the past. A good example is at our request, the VIII and the contractor did soil sampling around our water main line that runs through the property. And one of the concerns that we had was what would happen if a water line broke and it had a siphon in contaminants into our drinking water system. So we wanted to know what, as best as possible, what the risk was to a water system if we had a main break. Out of that concern, we came up with a contingency plan on water shutoffs and what we would do in case of an emergency. It also allowed us to put in a collaborative plan with VIII, TRC, who's the contractor, and a third-party contractor that we both agreed to that would do work if we ever had a main break on. That contractor would respond on an emergency basis and help excavate and fix a water break if we had an issue. We were able to test that collaborative plan when we needed to change power poles. There were poles that were in bad shape and they needed to be upgraded, and we did. And through the partnership with VIII, TRC, and the contractor came in, took all the contaminated soil, and it worked well. So we've got firsthand experience on how this new iteration of the remediation plan has helped troubleshoot and resolve conflicts that hadn't been addressed previously. Mark, do I need to weigh in on anything else?
I don't think so. It's just the next big public event would be the statement of basis. That's something to keep in mind coming up, and that, hopefully it happens sooner than later. But it's nice that you're able to work through all these issues with them, and everyone's working together.
Correct. And so there'll be the statement of basis, then there's a 45-day comment period, and we will also sponsor the public meeting on that statement of basis. So we'll have the US EPA out in the community again and host an event. We're unsure what that will look like now because of COVID, but given how things are heading in terms of the incident rate in Ohio and in the country, we may have some hybrid in-person event. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, the last public meetings were held in late 2019, so there hasn't been any big public meeting with the US EPA in a while, but the next one will be coming up with the statement of basis. Next slide, Jose, if we can move on. This slide is about our collaboration with the Planning Commission about updates to the stormwater management plan. Tom and Nadia and I think, reviewed and gave comments to Planning Commission about the updates. Some of them is about reducing the amount of rainwater runoff off properties. And the last one is about our action items in recycling. Matthew and Sue Pfeiffer were really active in this area. Most recently, the ordinance was put in place that renters at apartment complex would now have access to recycling, which is, they hadn't had recycling options in the past. We helped with Josue to renew our waste management contract, and there were some updates with that we added into. But that basically rounds out all the, I know it's a quick run through, but we worked on these several topics and are looking forward to being active again in 2021. We recruited a couple of new members to replace some people who have left and stepped down. Tom, Nadia, and Deanna have all left. So as of now, I know if Piper has filled in as an alternate role, but me and Matthew and Catherine are coming in from 2020. I think Marianne has something to say about going into 2021.
Can you switch the slide? Thank you, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mark? Okay. Thank you, Mark, for doing the presentation. And I just want to wrap up our PowerPoint presentation. Again, thank all of the people that served on the Environmental Commission. And especially I would like to acknowledge Nadia Malarkey and Tom Dietrich, who were two people who were on the started Environmental Commission. I think it was the second year I came on council. So I think they both have served 6 years. I'd also like to acknowledge Catherine, who without Catherine, we would never have done any of the habitat work. And for 2020, I imagine that most of the work that we do and all of it, everything that you heard about will be continuing and is continuing into 2021. I imagine that a lot, if not most of it, will fall under the umbrella of a climate action and sustainability plan that we have been talking about and getting ideas about what that might look like. And I just want to say a couple things about lessons learned in 2020. One lesson that I learned from a project that didn't work was how important it is for, especially with volunteers, to really give the kind of support and vet the projects that they want to do. Because the project that didn't work out, which was a recycling pilot project, really, we didn't take time to vet it, and I didn't really give enough support to Sue, who was trying to do it. So that's been a big lesson for me. And the other lesson learned, I think, was how critical it is to collaborate with other groups, because most of our commissions have a few, we might have 5 people on, maybe a few more, but that's not really enough to really do a lot of the kind of projects that we want to do. So the glass farm, conservation area, and the habitat work, both examples of collaborating with different groups, different individuals, and the village crew. And I do want to give a shout out to the village crew for the help that they've done in getting the glass farm habitat mowed, helping when the flow device fell apart, getting in there and getting that fixed, and putting the signs up. And by the way, there were there was concern about where the sign was placed in front of the tile work for the springs on Dayton Street, and that has been moved today. Finally, we would like the $5,000 for the commission for 2021. We have plans for things that we're going to be doing for the habitat work, and some of the stuff is going to happen. We're going to have a celebration on Earth Day, and other projects that we're going to do in that regard and regarding the climate action plan. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mary Ann. Thanks, Mark. Did anyone have any comments or questions? Hey, I just want to say, I really want to underscore what Mary Ann and Mark both expressed, because the Environmental Commission is one of our amazing, highly functional commissions. And, you know, we talk about this a lot because there are so many competing priorities that collaboration adds capacity, and that's where we can really see a lot of things getting done. So great model. I appreciate, and I know all of the village does all the work that the EC does. So thanks so much.
I just remembered there's one more person I want to acknowledge, and that is Raven. Because we had all the pieces of the presentation, but I had no idea how to put a PowerPoint together. So I went in and sat down with Raven, and, you know, like in what, about 15 minutes, it's like boing, boing, move this here, move that there, and it was done. And so shout out to Raven.
Nice. Yeah, Raven is doing a great job. All right. Well,
I also want to point out, Brian, if I may, Mary Ann is also the model with how SharePoint has been set up to share documents. And so she also has SharePoint set up for sharing documents. So I'm very impressed, Mary Ann.
Nice. Technology can definitely be our friend. All right. Well, we are going to stick with Mary Ann as we move into old business and talk about a proposed community action planning initiative. I'm sorry, climate action plan.
Yeah. So I'll introduce it, and then I'm going to pass it over to Josue. So I think you all know we've been talking about climate action and climate action sustainability plan, and I've been doing research. I've been reaching out to people, Tecumseh Land Trust, Agraria, different people in the community, researching with Piper Fernway, who was mentioned, who's come on as an alternate and who's done some of these plans, to see what other communities are doing, what we might be able to do, and build support for this. So in the course of doing that, Josue and I have talked, and he has some thoughts about how we might support this work, because it came to me after several people said, hey, you know, if you're going to do this, you have to have someone paid to lead this effort. So I'm going to turn it over to Josue to talk about that piece.
Thank you, Mary Ann. And how I've approached the situation is that we've already engaged in a lot of things that come after the development of the climate action plan. To give you an example, over 80% of our energy comes from renewable sources, and we did that with intention. It is intentional act to go out into the energy market and sign on for contracts for many years into the future at a premium, because it comes from a renewable source, such as the hydros that we have, the wind, and the solar. So a lot of these things are only way to get to them is intentional, and it's a practice that you engage in these things after you've had sustainability goals. You talked about a climate action plan and whatnot. So I'm certainly proud of where we are at the village and all the things that we've accomplished, and we've had some really good direction to work on. And so as Mary Ann and I were discussing the need for a climate action plan, you know, to me it was clear that we needed one, because we've already been engaging in the strategy and tactic execution of what would be in a climate action plan. So I highlighted the energy portfolio. 80% of our village's energy comes from renewable energy, and that is clearly to combat the climate change, the green gas emissions that are produced by burning coal to produce electricity and other things. So we're already acting on it. So I think it's important for us to memorialize and write our goals or sustainability goals and have them neatly packaged in a plan along with a work plan for us to not end the work here, right? There's so much more to do, and so much more to do just on the energy portfolio we've talked about last year, we've had extensive conversations about residential solar. We eliminated a cap of residential solar participation for various reasons. One, we've had a lot of people, we had standing room only at my first council meeting because folks were interested in doing more with residential solar. And so we eliminated the cap, and that helps build not just awareness, but also participation in the green energy movement. Folks could use their solar tops to produce energy and offset their carbon footprint. So part of that is also that strategy would fit well into a climate action plan. And we, in the administration, we have some goals. We want to see some meaningful impact from residential solar, and we would like to see that grow to 5% of our energy generation and consumption within the village. We are already the AMP community, the greenest member in the AMP community, but why stop there? There's so much more room for us to grow in that space. So just there, I highlighted two key goals and targets for us to reach on that will be well captured in a climate action plan. I have planned to speak in greater detail, connect the climate action plan to our energy portfolio strategy and how I'm presenting the consideration of the sale of our renewable energy credits and being able to contribute to the climate action plan. But if Brian and Marianne, if you think it would be appropriate, I have a graphic that I can share that it makes the connection between the climate action plan and some of our energy goals.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to share.
Okay, let me open. Okay. All right, so you're going to get a preview of my consideration for sale of RECs. This is a quick overview, just all of our energy sources. You all know that most of our energy is coming from green sources. That generates several RECs. Just in 2020, we generated 15,613 RECs. I'll get into this in my presentation, but we had talked about last year on how we would use the funds from the proceeds from the sale of RECs. And these are the things that we wanted to do. Invest in electric infrastructure. Well, we've completed the engineering report, so we know where our trouble challenges are. Fund new solar production, fund energy saving initiatives, and fund the utility lineup 2.0 to include energy audits, weatherization for homeowners and other businesses. A lot of this work, these 4 items fit well within a climate action plan because all of these are energy dependent goals. They're specifically designed to address carbon footprint, reducing our carbon footprint and increasing energy efficiency and renewable energy production. So they fit well into a climate action plan by developing a strategy and a work plan and funding a climate action plan. So to me, and this is specifically looking at our energy portfolio, the climate action plan will cover sustainability goals and target, which are tied into energy portfolio goals. Currently, we're hoping to achieve 85% renewable energy source goal from a combination of contracts, residential solar, and the municipal solar, both the current and future solar generation. That's that additional 5%. And we want to increase the residential solar participation to 5%. So we're looking at maybe being market dependent for 5 to 10% of our portfolio. Making infrastructure improvements, running programs such as energy saving programs and utility roundup 2.0. We also find it critical to do an asset mapping. What resources do we have in our community through partnership and community resources? That includes what's available at our agraria, the residential solar customers. And so we are resource rich in this community. So we need to be able to tap into those and find opportunities to work together. There's folks in our community that are doing compost and other soil regenerative practices, which is good for an environmental climate action plan. The other is a stakeholder assessment. What are the groups that are to benefit from a climate action plan? Solar co-op, residents, we've got Agraria, ANIAC, and these are examples. Obviously, a full stakeholder assessment would include everyone. But to get back to Mary Ann's point, what would an action plan cover? These were things that fall within the purview of the administration that would fit nicely in the climate action plan. And then Mary Ann will bring in the community component along with the Environmental Commission and the expertise of the Environmental Commission to expand the climate action plan, the scope of work. Mary Ann, did I miss anything?
I'm not sure, but I can't see the screen well enough to, and I didn't remember, but you're good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Mary Ann, did you want to wrap up with anything on this issue?
What what I think Josue and I really are proposing is that the Environmental Commission create a proposal to come back to council on that would include what flesh out the concept more and what would be included in a climate action and sustainability plan, as well as the stages of that, who would be involved, and some of the funding that could come from the sale of the RECs. And you know, while we're creating the road as we walk it, as they say. So at this point, what we'd come back with is not like the full-blown plan, but I think an idea of how we could move forward.
Sure.
And the Environmental Commission meets this Thursday as we're bringing in new members and saying our continued goodbye to former members. And we have one more meeting then before on the 15th, and then council meets the second week in April on the 19th, I think. So the proposal that we bring back maybe would come to the 19th of April, but probably more likely May, the first meeting in May.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate the focus on this, and I certainly am one council member that thinks, as you've expressed, Mary Ann, that this climate action, climate change piece is something we really need to focus on. So, okay, we have another piece of old business, which is our regular agenda item, meaningful actions related to anti-racism. And I will wrap up with a few things, but I want to let Laura begin with what she submitted for the packet about the decriminalizing minor misdemeanors pilot.
Yes, thank you, Brian. And thanks to the Justice System Reform Subcommittee for their work since September on this first proposal, which is to reduce certain kinds of interactions that hard to characterize what they are, generally involving minor violations of the law. In the literature, these types of interactions are sometimes called pretext stops. In some communities, many communities across the United States, people who are Black and brown in color often get stopped more frequently for this category of stops. Again, not that our police would do that, but we want to have a protocol in place to reduce these. So there are two basic categories. One is mechanical failure stops, and one of them is minor moving violations. So the police have actually, the YSPD, thank you, Chief Carlson, have already started reducing the mechanical failures. So these would be things like a broken windshield, tail light out, plate light out, rearview mirror knocked off. So what our officers can do, if that's the only thing they see happening regarding a citizen or someone else going through town, is that they're going to generate a courtesy letter to the owner of the vehicle that they have a mechanical failure issue and that it should be repaired. So that's the basic idea. They're going to start keeping statistics from April 1st to August 1st, and then we'll reevaluate that as a subcommittee. And maybe Chief is on the line. He wants to say more.
Thank you, Laura. Yes, I am on the line. I don't have much to add. I think it's a great start, a great plan. And we're going to do our best to try to track as much of the progress on this as possible. But thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks, Laura. Josue, is there anything we need to clarify on this, or?
Yes, Brian, thank you for the opportunity. I like the work that's gone into this. I think the JSCC was very supportive. I was very supportive of this endeavor. One of the concerns that I have is that along the way, we have discussed the protocol. The protocol is very clear. I thought we ought to agree to it, that there would be a written proposal or recommendation that would be vetted by the JSCC. So there would be an opportunity for constituents and for administration and council members to weigh on so that we had a prepared, a more thoughtful and thought out strategy on the recommendation that will come to council for us to act on. So I'm a little concerned about where we are now because I feel that we missed that step on fine-tuning a recommendation. So there are practical things that haven't been addressed in the proposal. So that's the concern I have. We clearly established a protocol so that we had an opportunity for everyone to weigh on and be able to work through the administrative process to make sure that we have the right technology, the right data set, and all the things needed to be able to embark on this strategy.
So I think a way to remedy that, because I know we had been waiting to get the written part, is that I believe Judy has already shared this with the JSCC. We should certainly make sure that it's also on the SharePoint site, which reminding all citizens that anyone that wants access to the Justice System Collaborative Committee SharePoint site, that's got all the videos of the meetings and minutes and work that's being done, we can certainly direct them there. And I think that would mean in my mind that we should then come back at the next meeting, make sure that that review has been done in case there are any other comments. And then I think that would also mean officially starting the pilot the day after council approves it.
Okay, so the police have been doing it on their own since the end of January. Is that correct, Chief?
We have, I've had the officers eliminate those certain stops, but we haven't done any of the recording or letters to anyone or anything like that.
Right. So that was going to start more or less on April the 1st. And, so we solicited input from the groups and I didn't get any. We did meet as a subcommittee with the mayor, the chief, Florence, Wendy Rickscoff was invited, and myself and Kelly and Tracy. And this is something we've been working on for a while, and it seemed like we had a consensus and it's moving forward. I'm not sure what else needs to happen procedurally.
So Laura,
it's a pilot project. So okay. I'm just, we've had a lot of meetings about it, and the chief did a good job and wrote up the protocol, and it's been happening. The police have been starting to do that, and the statistics part will come starting April 1st.
So I think this brings up a couple issues, Josue. I'll jump in. Okay, number one is, traditionally the village has sometimes kind of jump too quickly to take action without, going through some of the vetting. And normally it turns out well, but I know when I came on council, we had a bunch of trash cans that had been rotted out. And there was also this proposal to spend money on a skate park that no one wanted. And so I do think, we did say from the beginning that we'd have recommendations in writing vetted by the full committee brought to council. However, I mean, if we're proposing not to follow that process, I think we just need to let the folks know. But I can definitely confirm a written document has never come to the full committee, and there hasn't been a walkthrough of those issues. But actually, I'm relatively open. So I mean, Laura, if you're recommending that we should not go through
You'll
that.
have to go back and look at what I presented to the JSCC. I mean, I've written it up. I even wrote it up as a resolution, and then I don't think people felt it needed to go to council as a resolution, that the chief was quite capable of, if we agreed on this protocol. I'm perfectly happy to bring it. The chief has something written up already, as do I, and we can bring that, and the JSCC can, get into the details. It gets confusing for me sometimes because I view the JSCC as you just want to hear the report, not really work through details of these things. So happy to do it. Happy to do it. It's already being done, but happy to do it. And maybe it'll be a much broader program and include the mechanical, not only the mechanical failure violations, but also the moving violations. That would be terrific.
Right, but I do want to clarify, we have videos of all those meetings. So a recommendation was never brought. There were some early on thoughts about how to outline it. But, I'm not one to add additional process if everyone feels that we don't need it. But I do want to say Josue is accurately describing what we said the process would be.
Okay, that's terrific. So
question.
let's bring it back to JSCC. That'd be great.
Okay.
I would appreciate that because, there's, Laura says there was consensus and I had not seen the written proposal. And I'm very concerned as the chief administrator that staff is being directed to do things that I haven't seen and council hasn't approved.
Oh, so do you want it as a resolution? Because I originally wrote it up that way.
Well, we had agreed to a process that it was going to come to JSCC, then council. The recommendation come to council, we'll discuss it and agree to on what process we're going to follow. So,
all right. Well, thanks for that clarification. That's what we'll do then. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brianne, did you say you had a question?
No, it was Lisa. I have a clarifying
Lisa,
question.
yes.
I don't know if Brianne had one too, though.
Okay.
Okay. So my understanding from tracking this and understanding that, the chief is already moving forward with particular behaviors with the officers. So I think we're not talking about whether or not those are the right actions for the officers. I think what we're talking about is the protocol for following up with people, the letter writing and the data collection and that sort of thing. And I wonder, we want that to be doable, right? We want to do it. We want it to be doable. So I almost wonder if that recommendation, rather than coming from a council person, should come from Josue and his team, where we say, this is what we want. The Chief Carlson has already implemented some change in protocol for his officers, but now we needed to close the loop on that by having a written follow-up to help people to understand what the concern was, and we need to be able to track it internally. That's the problem we're trying to solve. It seems to me like the members of the village team are the ones who can advise us on the best way to achieve those objectives.
Okay. All right. So I think we've got a way forward. Any other questions or thoughts on the pilot?
Yes.
Yeah, Marianne.
I'm surprised that it hadn't come to council before it was initiated. I think that it's an important enough project, pilot project, whatever, that it should come to council and be discussed and have a chance to weigh in on it and become educated about it before it's already down the road. And personally, there's one item on that list of minor complaints, which is noise, that I'm not sure I would want on that list of, because if you don't have a tail light out or something, that's not intentional. But playing your loud noise, and I happen to live right by Xenia Avenue, so I hear some of this, is an intentional act. And I'm not sure how effective it would be to, after the fact, send a letter or something to someone saying, hey, we didn't like it when you were playing the loud noise and it was against our ordinance. So I just, I think that the whole thing is important enough that it deserves coming to council and having some public dialogue about it.
Well, and I think that underscores the point that Josue raised, which kind of goes back to the initial process. Any other questions or comments? So I think I see John Fee. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is exactly the place that I was, that a lot of people that get frustrated with council. I'm not sure how things move forward. So for CRB, and I asked Lisa this, if we're done with what our group presents as far as the CRB, that goes to the commission, and then any details that want to be changed, this is my understanding, that's when council will say, okay, well, let's fix this, let's do this, it's that. And then before it's voted on, it goes back to us to say if we think that's representing what we present. And then it goes back, because I'm not sure how that, nobody's sure how that goes. And then it gets voted on.
Yeah, I think it's really straightforward the way that it's been presented. It's
not to me.
Well,
not
I know
to a lot of people.
Well, I understand, but we've explained it a few times. I'm going to explain it quickly again, but we got some other agenda items. So the whole initiative was there are all these groups working on things. They bring a recommendation to the committee. The committee further vets it as a larger group, brings it to council, and then everything happens at council table. So the back and forth that you described, that would be the advocates, the people interested, speaking at the council meeting about changes that they do or don't like. So, again, the part that's missing here is that, vetting of the wider group. But ultimately, once a well thought out proposal comes to council, then we discuss it as a public meeting and we make public decisions. We have discussion and all of that.
Does the public, do you send that after the council vets it? Does the people who worked on these things get to say, okay, that's...
Yes, they say that, right. They do that at the council meeting. So once a recommendation gets to council, then we discuss it there. And so then that's where, you would want to be there if we're talking about the Citizen Review Board and so forth. Okay, and so speaking of the Citizen Review Board, Lisa, I believe you wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, sure. So, there's been I'm grateful for renewed enthusiasm from John Fee and the 365 Project and other people who've been part of JSCC to enliven the work on the Citizen Review Board. And I thought it would be helpful to pull together for the packet sort of a historic view so people know what has gone before. I want to say thank you to, I guess, Judy or Brian. I'm not sure which one of you pulled together that longer term historic view. The particular things that I submitted to the packet includes some documents from kind of when I stepped into it in 18, where the Justice System Task Force made a recommendation around a citizen review board. I think I mentioned that at the last meeting, but I didn't have it in the packet or under my mouse. So that's in there. Then there's another overview of the U.S. Community Police Collaborative Practice, also from 18. And then a very high-level process overview that I worked on with some folks from Village Mediation, just so everybody has that. And I provided these documents to the group of folks that are interested in working on the Citizen Review Board. I really appreciate it and want to add on to a point that's been made a couple of times a night, and that is the importance of collaboration to extend capacity. All of our work is better when we include other groups and when we integrate other viewpoints. And it was my pleasure to attend the 365 project where Jomfi presented on two things, both the police guidelines, revisions to that, which also was brought before council, and a discussion about the Citizen Review Board. And in both cases, it was discussed that members of the 365 project were the initial architects of some of that work. And fortunately, some of those people are still very active in 365. And so I'm really glad to say that there are, as extenders of our work on council and as JSCC, two new work streams that are picking up the guidelines and also the Citizen Review Board. And I've positioned myself, my offer that I made to the group is that I could be a go-between to find documents like the ones that are in the packet that give a historical context, and weigh in on those kinds of questions to make sure that the group is working from a basis of fact and not speculation. And so that's where I see my role in that. I would expect that those two work streams will bring some proposals to the JSCC when those are written. I think they're meeting for the first time later this week. So I would expect that they'll set some timelines in that next meeting of when they'll have those ready. And then once these go to the JSCC, then they can come to council for discussion. So I think we've made some really major progress since JSCC last meeting, and I just want to say thank you for all of the people that are stepping forward, and to you, Jomfi, for being a very passionate advocate for this work.
All right, thanks, Lisa. So I guess I want to highlight, just for a little bit more clarity, where the process has been followed and has worked. One of those was decriminalizing possession of marijuana. We had a proposal, JSCC reviewed it, council reviewed it, we passed the ordinance. We had this recently happen with the pilot to capture encounter data. And again, a process was put in writing, and the JSCC reviewed that. It came to council, we discussed it, thought it looked great. And we have another initiative which will be much more impactful for our village than many of these other initiatives, which is to improve our performance evaluations. There's been some work done on that. We were not able to get through that piece on the agenda because some other things kept popping up, so we weren't able to stay on the agenda. But we did try to get through that, and we will continue that work because, the reality for Yellow Springs is we're not a big city where we have all these major racism and other issues happening, but we can make a huge difference by evaluating our officers based on the way that they should be respecting citizens, following the guidelines for village policing. And Chief Carlson has emphasized this many times as well. So I really hope that we get to finish that work so the council can see that proposal soon. I want to highlight two other things. One is the reason why you also saw quite a few documents about the guidelines for village policing. And I'm going to be a little bit less diplomatic than Lisa, because I've sat through several meetings where either it's disinformation, mischaracterization, suggestions of conspiracy, I'm not sure. But the idea that these guidelines for village policing just came out of nowhere. And one of the meetings where I was specifically told I could not speak, I could have clarified all the work that has gone into this and all the groups that have been working on it for over 5 years. And unfortunately, this was also explained by John Gudgel in an email, but that explanation was ignored. And so unfortunately, people were led to believe something that's not accurate. And I think this timeline really shows you that starting, well, pretty much in earnest in 2015, but even before that, there was a lot of work on policing philosophy for the village. The guidelines for village policing went through several iterations with council members, with the 365 project, and with other groups. And that's an incredible example of a process that all linked back to a variety of community conversations where there was actually input from the community as a whole, rather than maybe representing that someone is speaking for a community as a whole. We really had that input. We worked through that process, and it was really powerful. So anyway, the
Brian
facts are there, and I want that to be, something that everyone sees. The other thing is, I do want to talk about status of the JSCC is on.
Real quick, Brian, can I respond to that?
I don't know that we're going to have additional comments, John Fee, but we will be talking about this in a next meeting.
Well, that's what.
So in terms of the JSCC, one of the things that Lisa highlighted that I'm also excited about.
That's what I was talking about, the suppression of speech.
All right, John Fee, unlike other meetings that I know you participate in, you cannot just jump in, and in general, we give each person a chance to speak and not just to keep on coming back to the mic. So, so I'd like you to respect the rules and procedures of a council meeting, but I understand other meetings are different.
No, I'll put it on.
Okay, so I want to finish my thought on the JSCC so we can move on. Again, I'm excited that we have a lot of participation from different groups. And what is happening that we hoped would happen is to capture that passion and that capacity, because this work really is best done with the 365 project and with other groups that are already existing. That includes YS Speaking Up for Justice. We included the resolution that began the JSCC, which was always intended to be a way to gather these recommendations, vet them, and move them to council. And we've done that with some success. But I think that with all the things that are happening with, John Fee's got different groups working, the 365 project, a lot of other groups, that we can continue to share that work to anyone that's interested in the JSCC via email. We can also keep the SharePoint site updated, and we will continue to move these through council, and whatever capacity and collaboration we can have in that regard is going to be really helpful. So we're going to move to new business, and the first thing that we have for new business is talking about the utility dispute board. And Josue, is this one that you're leading, or Judy?
I will do that. Utility dispute resolution board is a unique animal in that it's the way that citizens have to bring, if they've got a complaint that they simply can't resolve through the utility department, and they want to contest their bill even after all of those measures have been worked through with the utility department, it goes to the Utility Dispute Resolution Board. And because it's a dispute with the utility department, the manager is really very hands off of that process. And it also, council is hands off of that process. So I am bringing a recommendation to you in hopes that one of you will then make a nomination. Gary Zaremski, who's a pretty active member of the community and well known to be a listening, hearing, careful, collaborative kind of guy, has volunteered to step forward and serve on that board. And so I'd like to recommend him, and I'd also like to recommend that Jane Scott be nominated for another 5-year term. She has served, and so she's gotten to know the process quite well at this point. Thank you.
Can that be one nomination or should it be 2?
It is 2 nominations, yes.
Okay, well, I'll nominate Gary Zaremski for that board.
Second.
I'll second. Okay, we've got plenty of seconds. And yeah, I'll just say quickly that, Judy, I think you captured Gary really well. I think the idea that, we want people that are objective and not bringing in sort of their political leanings with these kinds of boards is really important. So Judy, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Ms. Krieger.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Thank you. Stokes.
Yes.
Who am I missing? McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone want to make another motion?
I'll nominate Jane Scott for a 2nd term, 5-year term.
I second that.
Okay.
Kevin. All right. Thank you. Stokes.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up is talking about our renewable energy credits. And Josue, I know you've got a presentation since we already saw a little preview.
All right, thank you, Brian. All right, this year's presentation is much shorter than last year because we did the presentation on what is this renewable energy credit, where does our energy come from, and whatnot. So, and this one I attempt to get straight into the details. So I'll start off with where does our energy come from? We've got a lot of renewable energy sources. So just last year, we've got a little over 81% that came from our renewable energy sources. So all these renewable energy sources generate renewable energy credits, with the one exception of the muni solar. That's a project that doesn't generate credits for us because it's owned by a third party, but we get the benefits of the electricity. Here are the credits that were generated in 2020 from hydro projects. We received or generated 3,644 credits. That's coming from Cannleton, Smithland, and Willow Island. Greenup is 3,567. Medall is 7,453. And Brown County landfill is 949 for a total of 15,613 credits. Currently, the market price averaged around $9.50 on February 18th. So we would expect to generate, if all of them sold, they would generate around $148,000. Now, what are the options for the sale of renewable energy credits? I want to pause here because last year we had a different process for selling our renewable energy credits. We started with a presentation considering the sale of credits, and then we came back to council with an actual action item for approving the sale of renewable credits. I took the liberty of including the options here that will be available to us, and that would be we sell all 15,613 credits and anticipate proceeds of $148,000. Option 2 would be to sell the 15,613 credits and buy another 15,613 credits. Now, you say, well, why sell the same amount and buy the same amount? There's an opportunity for us to trade in on what are our high quality compliance credits and buy consumer grade credits, green E credits, and have in our portfolio the same amount of renewable energy credits. If we did this second option, we still expect to get a net proceeds of 112,000. So the purchase of another 15,000 credits will cost us around $36,000. The third option is, well, sell none and we retain all of our high quality renewable energy credits. Similar to last year, what could we use the funds for? Invest in electric energy infrastructure, fund new solar production, fund energy saving initiatives, utility roundup program. A couple of weeks ago, I presented on the solar pavilion, and we talked about the delta. What's the difference between the cost savings that the pavilion solar would generate for us, and that comes out to about $38,000, and what it would actually cost us in terms of payment-wise to pay for that solar pavilion at the John Bryan Center. And the delta there is about $5,000. So we could use a portion of the sale of the credits to help finance the solar pavilion. I think there's a lot of value for us of having the solar pavilion. One, it creates an additional space for events such as the farmers market that's currently taking place at the John Bryan Center, but it could also be a community gathering space, things for special events, concerts, art exhibits, and whatnot. I think we have a lot of activities in town that could benefit from having a shelter pavilion at the parking lot. I also talked about the climate action plan earlier. All of these things, 4 categories or 4 strategies fit well within a climate action plan. And it would be proper use of these proceeds from the electric enterprise because there are energy related activities and they're specific to our portfolio. By investing a strategic plan and a work plan that will ultimately result in a climate action plan, we will be preparing ourselves for long-term sustainability. And I've talked in some detail about this diagram here just to show you how our energy goals, at least the ones that we've gotten direction from council and we've been acting on, fit well into the climate action plan. And we could use part of the proceeds to invest in the development of the climate action plan that would encompass the strategy and the work plan. So that's the overview. I'm happy to answer questions, and let me know, Brian, if you want me to focus on any particular slide. These are the options for sale, and these are the initiatives.
Right. I do have a question. So is there an option for where we could also sell back the RECs that we bought back the last time, or are those out of play?
Those are not out of play, but they would not be very competitive to sell them back in the market. They typically would be bought for meeting portfolio targets. In our case, we bought them because we wanted to still have a credit of RECs that represented how green we are. There's a distinction between, and we got into some philosophical conversations last year about, are you really green if you're selling your RECs? And we had some disagreements. Right. And the issue is that there's a distinction between the electrons and where the electrons come from and the credits. So just a brief overview of that. If we were to buy energy, say from a solar project that is 1,000 miles away, we're paying for that energy 1,000 miles away, but the electrons would be coming from whatever the closest source is. And the closest source to us may be a wind or a coal or nuclear plant down the road. So we would get our electrons from the closest sources. So are you really green without the renewable energy credits?
Okay, thanks for that recap. Okay, so are we being asked to make a decision tonight or to reflect on this and come back, or what?
Brian, could I say something? Yeah. So last year, I maybe was the only council person that opposed buying back rec so we could look like we were green. It's very irritating to me to try and sort of appear. I'm more interested in the reality than appearance. So this, but that's last year. This year, if we sold all our recs, we'd be making over 148,000. If we bought back some as I guess the second proposal, we'd be getting 112,000. That means the difference is a little bit over $36,000. So I would, one, I want us to sell our recs. Two, I'd much rather take that $36,000 and pump it back into the sustainable and climate change action things that we want to do in this village than pay for sort of a paper kind of thing to say we are green. For example, we could take that $36,000 and put it in directly into helping develop a climate action sustainability plan, or at least some of it. So I would like to propose that, well, I want to see where other council members are, but that we have Josue come back at maybe the next meeting with a proposal after, if we have time tonight to sort of get a read on council, if there's a sense of agreement.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully, I have a question, this is Kevin. You referred to, I got in my head, it's like high grade credits, the recs that we are selling, and then you said consumer grade would be the type that we would buy. We did go with that your recommended proposal. What does that mean down the road? In other words, do they age over time and grow in value? And what are we giving up by selling the high grade recs and purchasing the consumer grade? And please clarify whatever terminologies I've used that might not be correct, please.
Yeah, and if we were talking to green rec market people, they would use a different terminology than us. We sell our recs in the compliance market. Folks that for regulatory purposes, they need the recs that our projects generate. And we're buying the recs that we're buying them from projects that do not meet the same standard as the projects that we're currently contracted our energy from. So because the two credits exist in two different marketplaces, they're very similar as an investment instrument or a security. They just exist in two different places. And there's a price difference between the two. So when you have two securities in two separate markets, and they're similar or the same, it creates an arbitrage opportunity where you can buy and sell the same thing and make money on the transaction. So we're selling one in the compliance market and we're buying one that is not in the compliance market. And the end result is that we make some money and we still maintain the same number of credits. So that's why there's an opportunity to sell and buy and make money in this transaction. It's not a unique strategy. When we were looking at this last year, Oberlin had engaged in the same practice, so they were able to maintain green and so their credits. Did I answer your question, Kevin?
Okay, Laura, Lisa.
So the consumer grade, do you have any difficulty, Josue, with the quality of the credits that we'd be buying?
Not for our purposes. I don't have any concerns because we don't have any regulatory compliance to maintain the type of credits that we currently have that we will be selling. And we also don't have a compliance or regulatory requirement to buy credits at all. This is just something that we choose to symbolize to the world that we are green, and we're just not talk, but we're willing to show it with a certificate. Ultimately, what we have is a certificate that says we hold X number of renewable energy credits.
To say it another way, isn't it accurate? The reason you that philosophically you'd hold the RECs is that if we sold them to a polluter, they get to pollute without like relying on what we did. And so it's like double counting. Like we did the right thing, we did green, they're not, they're just buying already what we did. That to me is the difficulty with it, is that it seems like we're enabling.
That is one position that many in the industry have taken, and that's one of the concerns that was raised last year. I have the actual definition up on my screen if you would like to see it. What is the green e-credit that we will be buying? And I'll briefly share that and read the description, so for the benefit of all of us being informed. So the green e-rec, which is what we will be buying, is a green energy certified product or verified and certified by the Green e-Energy. The seller of a Green e-Energy certified product is required to disclose the quantity, type, and geographic sources of each certificate. And the product content label provided by the REC supplier contains this information. Green Energy also verifies that renewable energy certificates are not sold more than once or claimed by more than one party. And so when we buy a certificate, along with the certificate, we are told where the project originated from. So we're not just going on someone's word, that there's some disclosures and verification that the project that generated that REC actually exists and someone verified that it produced the one REC of energy that we buy. But to go more straight to your point, Laura, that's one way of looking at it. We did the right thing, or we invested in a product and then sold the REC, which is a certificate that proved that we bought green energy. We sell it to someone that needs it for compliance purpose. They need to meet energy goals and they didn't invest in a project, so they went out and market and bought a credit for it.
I would probably vote for us selling ours, but buying the same number. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. And Brian, I want to get back to your question about process. What are we asking for tonight? I acknowledge that last year we did this in a multi-step process where we presented on the RECs and what they were, how much we could get, and then council scheduled another activity, another meeting or action item to make a decision on. Mary Ann's got a good point. We could just wrap this up in one meeting if that was council's wishes.
Lisa?
This is Lisa, yeah. I appreciate the thoughtful points made by both Mary Ann and Laura. As I recall the charts, I was supporting the middle one. So I think that was the one where we didn't have the full revenue recoup, but it still was a significant amount of money. We're in a resource constrained time. And I think we have some great projects that we want to launch that will cost some money related to the environment. And my power is blinking on and off, and Kevin Stokes is completely down. So I'm going to stop talking just in case my power turns off.
Okay.
Okay, so I think to that point, if we can make the decision at the next council meeting, since we don't have Kevin, that would be my preference.
Ruth.
Hey, Ruth, what's going on with the...
I already got it taken care of.
Okay, so we've got...
Johnny Burns is here to save the day.
Yes, so we're working on the power surge stuff. Thank you, Johnny Burns. But yeah, I think we... and I will just say, since we were saying where we're at, and there's Kevin, my attitude is pretty similar to the last time. I think we should sell them all because we can do more good for our community. But I also specifically like Lisa's point that now more than ever, budgets are sensitive. But yeah, let's go ahead and move this to the next meeting unless we have to decide tonight. Okay. So if not, the item about fracking is easy. Do we want to sign on to the letter? I guess, let me ask. I mean, it seems like it's in line with what we've done in the past, but is there any concern or opposition to the village signing on?
This is Lisa. I think it's a good idea. And I reached out to Judy as well and asked if this should be in the packet because I was sure we all got this separately, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, we're either going to do this separately or we should do it all together. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't say yes to this.
Okay, great. Any other concerns? Okay, so then I can take care of that on behalf of the village. So then the other item was the Easter egg hunt. I'm guessing that that would be happening the first weekend of April, because I believe that Easter's April 4th. So, I mean, my preference would be something like this to be considered by the Arts and Culture Commission, but you guys are not going to be meeting in time for that, right, Lisa?
That's right. We meet the first week of the month, so we won't be meeting until the 6th again. So that's after the event. I mean, maybe, you know, I know that we have some inactive commissions and I think they have budgets. So maybe we can just decide as a group to partially fund out of some commission budget, knowing that probably if HRC was convening, or, I mean, I'm not sure Art and Culture Commission, but, you know, I mean, we have some really lofty mural goals. I'm not sure that we would have wanted to fund this particular thing out of our limited budget, even though it's a great thing and I support it in general. So I wonder if maybe some of the budget from less financially active commissions might pitch in a little bit of money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess it would also be helpful to know. So Kellyanne, I didn't expect there to be a funding ask. I thought you were just announcing this project. The other aspect is what particular thing that we're funding. Okay, so let's, does any council member want to propose an amount and then we can work out the details later?
So
I would.
I'm sorry, Marianne. I just have one thing to add before we go further, but you go ahead.
I propose that we contribute $1,000.
Okay. Any thoughts from other council members about this?
So, you know, I was going to say that one of the things that I've been really supportive of when we're funding is that what we're funding is something that's reusable or durable. Mm-hmm. I also want to lift up the comment in chat from Jomfi that this is, in essence, the government funding a religious recognition. And Easter is a Christian holiday, a very important one. I mean, and I really didn't even think of it because I'm just like, oh, kids will have fun. Post-COVID, kids will have fun. That's what I thought of. And I'm not Christian, and it didn't even cross my mind, which shows that I have this blind spot about it. And so having seen that comment, I do question whether it's appropriate for the village government to fund an Easter egg hunt for Easter.
Okay. Any other thoughts from council?
I would agree with Lisa. I don't think government should fund that.
Okay.
I mean, is there a way to reframe it so that there could be a springtime activity for kids? You know, I mean, I don't want it to be like a rose by any other name, or maybe later in April when it's a little warmer so we could have some kind of activity. I would be open to considering that.
Mm-hmm. And this really is, it's too bad this didn't come earlier because it's perfect for HRC, for example.
Mm-hmm. If we actually had a functioning HRC.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Okay, Kevin, we haven't heard from you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I was disconnected for a while. I'm one of the households that I'm completely in the dark with respect to the power outages. So I've missed most of the discussion. But from what I've heard after coming back on, I would be in support of the effort. I am Christian, and I'm not opposed to supporting children in any capacity, but I understand that there's some contention with respect to government entities hosting religious events, and so that can become problematic. But I would support the effort in general, but and to use Lisa's phrase, a rose by any other name. Well, I mean, that's what you do to make it legal or make it proper. So I would support, whatever compromise that gets the benefits that the program is expected to give. But if changing the name is what it takes, or changing the dates what it takes to satisfy all competing concerns, I'd say do that.
Yeah, well, I think that, this has become clear that, this is why these need to be kind of presented in advance for a variety of reasons. I mean, I'll just weigh in that, like, I don't know, an Easter bunny and kids getting treats is very hard for me to link to a religious celebration. But I think I've heard enough that would indicate that that there's not support for funding this. So, but thanks for bringing it forward, Kellyanne. I think we can figure out other ways, especially with the chamber, to promote the event and so forth. Okay. So,
I just want to say one thing. I agree. It would have been better if it had come earlier, but and of course it's called Easter, but I think most of us understand that this comes from Celtic. There are all sorts of indigenous practices that are recognizing spring and new birth. And that's really what this is about. An Easter egg hunt is not a religious practice. And, I think we're getting a little too into the weeds with that.
Then we should call it a pagan holiday, not an Easter.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm happy with
hold on, guys. Okay, so again, we appreciate citizen feedback. You cannot just jump in. There is a protocol for this meeting, which I understand other meetings may not have. But I think honestly, we've given it a good discussion. We've heard from people in chat, which is not the way to communicate. You should ask to be recognized, but I think we've covered the issues. Okay, so with that, we're gonna move to the manager's report.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you, Brian. And I'll start off with, I apologize, I didn't bring this, the Easter Bunny Egg Hunt Chocolate Gathering event sooner. I became aware of it with Kellyanne, and I thought it was, the way that we discussed it, it was a very appropriate one, because kids are returning full-time to school on April 5th, that following Monday. And there are these traditions in the community that are worth continuing. They're not religious in nature. I think, at least I'm Christian, and it doesn't connect with me in that sense of the what happens around Easter and the activities around Jesus Christ's life. But anyway, I take my responsibility of the miscommunication here, as I became aware of it, and I thought it was a great endeavor, particularly in light of Young's canceling their Easter egg roll and hunt. In my manager's report, I've included my manager's report's included in the packet. The big announcements since then are that we've had the American Recovery Act money, and we're looking at projects for those funds, and we also are studying and reaching out to the county administrators and county treasurers to understand the management of those funds. If you recall, the last stimulus package, the CARES Act money, there were very little guidance at the beginning, and then they kept changing over time, to the point that the day of the final date to expend funds, we had changes to the guidelines. What's different about the American Recovery Act and the funds is that they will be released in two tranches, two sets. So we expect the first disbursement to happen within the within the 60 days. And then we'll receive some guidance on the second disbursement. So we are looking into that. We've hired a new staff person. We've had some staff changes in the utilities clerk, and we're excited to announce that we've made an offer to Elise Burns, who's the mayor court clerk. So she's joining the utilities team. Mayor Pam, we're so appreciative for your support, and we're excited to have Elise join the team. And obviously, we'll work with Mayor Pam to make sure that all the mayor's court's duties and responsibilities are properly staffed. We've just became aware that we are experiencing some significant outages in town, so the crews has been dispatched, and that's a real-time activity that would also be available in my next manager's report. We've continued to do our planning for recreational activities. So announced that the pool is opening May 29th. We are opening additional activities beginning June 1st. That includes the gym and room rentals. So beginning June 1, spaces will become available here at the John Bryan Center. We're updating our rules, or house rules, if you will, to include the mask requirements and other COVID guidelines. But that's we're excited to announce that now and start planning for that. Any questions on my manager's report?
All right, thank you, Josue. Much appreciated. All right, so I know we at least have something for the Environmental Commission nominations. So Marianne and Laura.
Yes.
Yeah.
Laura and I would like to nominate Riley Dixon and Alex Klug. We've interviewed both of them, and I had previous conversations with both of them. I think Judy sent their resumes out maybe a week or so ago. Alex works at Agraria. Riley works at the News. They're two passionate, energetic younger adults who it's always great to have younger people come on commissions. Laura, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, we're happy to have their passion and excitement, and it's great when people come forward to serve. So we appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, so we have why don't we do them separately? So a nomination for Riley Dixon. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and Judy, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Yeah, Curlis.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
And then we have a second nomination for Alex Klug. And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and Judy, if we could call the roll again?
Yes, Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Krieger.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, any other boards and commissions updates that any council members have? Laura?
Well, I just want, this is also close to future agenda planning. On the second meeting of April, Brian, I'd like to have the protocol regarding the pretext stops put on the agenda, because I think we'll get it through, hopefully, JSCC before then.
Yeah, I think we can do it at the first meeting because we've sent it out, so we can just emphasize that we need any feedback by X date.
When is the next JSCC meeting?
It hasn't been scheduled, but we can get any input by email. Great. The other thing is, Laura, if you want to talk about some of the things that we might want to put on the agenda related to some of the planning commission things that came up. I know there are a few kind of unresolved issues, and I would be open to if we need to kind of talk about any of those. So
yeah, I wish I could at this moment, but I did start my report, and I asked Judy. She sent me. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, and honestly, I'm just not at this moment ready. But I'm working on it for. So I'll be
But I guess, I mean, the things that I've seen are one about recusals, one about the role that our village solicitor plays.
Well, yeah. So of interest, so there's a view, maybe Judy Kentner thinks it's a view that other village solicitors held, is this idea that rental owners might have to recuse themselves if they're on planning commission just by virtue of the fact that they own a rental.
Yeah.
So and whether
a transient guest.
So this is an issue, and it probably needs, I think, an ethics opinion from the Ethics Commission, because, I read, so like Ethics Opinion 85-06 talks about whether someone's status as a realtor means they can't serve, for example. And really what the commission talks about is a direct personal pecuniary benefit. That's the thing that would be a ethics concern, not if you have an indirect, speculative, far away kind of benefit. It has to be very direct and personal.
So, and I think, so my point is that I'm open to, if we, need to discuss some of those issues, that we can put those on a future agenda. Because I think there's not just one opinion about it. Okay, great. So otherwise.
Yes, I have a topic.
Yes.
I would like to bring, actually, if we could have an initial discussion at our next meeting, the remaining property on Cemetery Street and how we might use it. I know that Home Inc. has an opportunity to get some pre-development money to examine to see whether it would actually work to put housing there.
Okay, sounds like a good future agenda item. Any other?
Brian, I have a topic that an issue we had this week regarding tables out on the sidewalk. As you know, it's been a practice to allow dining tables out on the sidewalk. And because of the COVID guidelines still in place, we requested that one particular business not put their table out in the sidewalk because it doesn't allow for the 6 feet distancing. They state that there's plenty of room for the pedestrian to walk by, but as you know, we've got very narrow sidewalks, and my interpretation of the mask requirement and the physical distancing, unmasked individuals seating within a foot of passing pedestrians doesn't allow for physical distancing. So I think this may be something that I would like council to weigh on intentions and if I'm right, and asking for proper physical distancing of these tables.
Okay, yeah, so I think that's an important agenda item to kind of talk about how we start a plan for or rolling back, I guess, some of the restrictions. I would definitely.
I have something COVID related as well, Brian.
Okay.
Council had last year talked about the feasibility of developing a downtown outdoor refreshment area through the Liquor Control Commission permit process. We do have at least 4 permitted establishments, and if council wanted to entertain that, I believe I could have an ordinance ready by the second meeting in April. And there are some communities that have done this that have said, as far as COVID's concerned, it actually helped their businesses to survive with the availability of outdoor seating and not having to restrict consumption to the premises.
Okay.
So if council wants me to bring that forward, I would entertain a motion to that effect, because I know council had expressed interest in that, but it was in the dead of winter at the end of the year last year.
Yeah, I think that is a good short discussion item to have initially to assess where council is. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
I promise I won't mention Short Street.
Or
all right, we'll hold you to it, I guess. All right, any other future agenda items? Okay, great. Well, I think it was a rich discussion. We covered quite a bit, and there are a lot of topics that will continue to unfold. So I appreciate everyone. Have a great evening, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Be safe.
Bye-bye.